Thank you for staying with Your World. My name is Gladys Gachanja. As I mentioned in this part, we actually shift gears and take a look at the welfare of donkeys. And speaking of which, Donkey for Prosperity and Resilience Amidst Adversity was this year's theme to mark National Donkey Day. Now, while the donkeys benefited from free medical services, various organizations as well as farmers protested the move by the High Court in approving the resumption of donkey slaughter across the country. Ruth Samoei with more.
In Nakuru County, donkey owners marked the celebrations by planting trees at Dundori Forest, while their donkeys received medical services such as deworming, trimming of hooves, as well as dental services.
Wakulima wako wanaripoti punda ni mgonjwa. Wengine walikuwa na kuamini kwingine ya kwamba punda hakuagi mgonjwa.
Mbeleni wamama ndio wamekuwa punda, lakini kwa saa hii punda zimekuja zimetusaidia kwenye hatuwezi beba mizigo au punda wanatubebea, kwa hivyo punda ni wa maana.
While farmers celebrate the strides they have made in protecting the welfare of these animals, many still fear that the resumption of activities in donkey abattoirs will water down the gains they have made.
Vichinjio wakiendelea kuchinja hiyo punda zetu, bado miaka ingine ikikuja kama 5 ama 6 hakutakuwa na punda.
The move by the High Court to approve the revival of donkey slaughter in the country came as a relief to the 4 main abattoirs in Naivasha, Mogotio, Turkana and Machakos. But farmers in Baringo County have protested the move, saying the unending demand of donkey products used to make traditional medicine in China may trigger the theft of the beast of burden.
The 2019 census indicated that the current donkey population in Kenya is at 1.1. So we have lost at about 700,000 donkey within a span of 4 years.
Owners in Rai, Nairobi County echoed similar sentiments.
Punda pia kwa sababu hatari ile iko, tunasema wakulima wafungie punda zao nyumbani. Wewe nikifungia punda wangu miezi 8 na maybe niko na punda wa kike ama niko na punda wa kiume, kumaanisha hiyo miezi 6 ama mwaka mmoja ama miaka 2 haijapatana na ndume, kumaanisha hiyo miaka 2 itakuwa imepata.
A June 2019 report by the Kenya Agricultural and Livestock Research warned that donkeys could be extinct by 2023 if their slaughter is not regulated. Ruth Sarmoi, NTV.
Clearly from that report by Ruth, it is clear we need to safeguard the welfare of donkeys. And to help us understand this subject a bit further, we have Eston Murithi, who is the CEO Kenya Network for Dissemination of Agriculture Technologies, KENDIT. Thank you for joining us. And joining us virtually from Mombasa is Lawrence Omuhaka, who is the CAS Ministry of Livestock and Fisheries. Thank you for joining us. And Eston, as we said, this year's theme was Donkeys for Prosperity and Resilience Amidst Adversity. Now, a donkey as a resilient animal, and especially in the midst of the pandemic, how has that donkey stood out?
Gladys, if you look at our environments, they are very varied in this country. We have places where we experience floods. We have places where there is drought. We have experienced invasion by locusts. We have had the recent pandemic, that is COVID-19. We have places where it is very wet and the roads are very bad. So looking at all these kind of environments, transport for farmers is a big challenge. If you look at the role that is played by the donkeys, given all this, is very significant. I can tell you that there are some places, I can quote examples of Nyandarua, where no vehicles can move produce from the farms. It's only donkeys that can do that when it is raining. There are places in arid and semi-arid areas where when it is very dry, animals suffer a lot, but donkeys are the last to suffer significantly. And these are the ones that are left looking for water to bring to the homesteads, to transport the small children when they are moving from one place to another. So you can see the place of donkeys when they are these adversities, leave alone when they are doing normal work in these other environments. But when you look at when the adversity is like this, donkeys play a major role in terms of transport. Yeah.
Okay, now Lawrence, in the pandemic, one thing that has been hard hit is the economy status of many people. So how has the role of donkeys ensured that these communities rely on them actually keep going?
Yeah, thank you very much, Gladys. Donkeys are actually very important, just way my brother Eston has explained. We've had a problem with theft of donkeys. Many cases have been reported to the police. We have also had cases of mistreatment of donkeys. I find there's no vaccination, no treatment, overgrown hooves, which requires to be trimmed. But it's like the farmers are not sensitized. They don't understand the importance of this. There's also now the slaughtering, which actually started in from 2016, at a very high rate that we are slaughtering about 100 donkeys per day. We also have a problem of slaughtering pregnant donkeys. We also have a slaughtering of underage donkeys. So these are some of the issues that made the government to suspend slaughtering of donkeys by closing the abattoirs. But unfortunately, we took the case to the businessmen took the case to court, and we lost. But plans are there. We are already working on an appeal. So we shall appeal with fresh facts, because if the trend continues, then it's like within 3 years, we shall not have no donkey remaining. Because if you have a population of 1.1 and we are slaughtering 1,000 per day, then in the next 3 years, we shall have no donkey remaining.
And now that Lawrence has taken us to the heart of a matter right now, especially in the face of that judgment that quashed the ban on donkey slaughter and skin trade, I remember, according to a report by the African Network for Animal Welfare last year, actually said, and I think the report also alluded to the same, that the donkey population in this country could be wiped out by 2023. Doesn't the ruling accelerate this very inevitability?
Yeah, Gladys, I think we need to go back to the basics. That if you look at the population of donkeys, the way it has been moving, in the year 2009, the census that was done by the government indicated that we had roughly 1.8 million donkeys. The government did another survey in 2016 that indicated that we had about 1.9 million donkeys, an increase of 100,000 roughly. The slaughterhouses, 4 of them in the country, in different counties, in Machakos, Nakuru, Baringo and Turkana, were licensed beginning the year 2016. The population census of 2019 indicated that we have a population of roughly 1.1 million donkeys. So if you look at that trend, meaning that since the start of the slaughter in 2016, we have lost roughly 800,000 or so. So looking at that, and given the information and the research that has been done, that the slaughterhouses were slaughtering about 1,000 donkeys per day, it means that that population is certainly on a decline. Now, the reason why this is not desirable for Kenyans is that, as I indicated before, the importance of donkeys to the rural farmers, particularly those are in environments where they require the donkeys, actually is going to be devastating for them if the donkeys are wiped out. And that is why they are saying now cannot allow this, and the government has seen it. And of course, as my friend and brother Lawrence has said, they have seen that, and the government has reacted in the positive way to save the donkeys of this country, and also to save the people from the devastation of losing the donkeys.
Now, Lawrence, in 2016, you gave a head for the slaughtering of donkeys because it was a way of giving, especially the youth, a source of income. And there are those who are actually happy that the court was able to quash that ban, or rather the ban on donkey slaughtering and skin trade. What happened, and is there a way to actually balance the two?
Okay, thank you very much, Gladys. Actually, donkey slaughtering, gazettement of donkey as food was done in 1999 when Honorable Musalia Mudavadi was the Minister for Agriculture, 1999. This was because the people were still slaughtering donkeys, although it was on a small scale. We are finding them, finding the meat in butcheries, and the government decided that they should legalize it so that any meat that is processed, whether it's donkey or cow or whatever, sheep, has to be vetted by the veterinary services, and that's why it was legalized. But in 2016, now an investor came in, several investors came in, and to set up an abattoir, a modern abattoir for donkeys. You spend about between 250 to 300 million. So they have invested heavily. But I think one thing I want to say is that if we just continue talking about donkey, we may not go far. What we need to do is to come up with ways of breeding the donkeys, so that we must make them lucrative. Because before the slaughtering started, the donkeys were going at about 5,000. It means people are not really valuing them, because in some areas where roads are now good, people are able to use motorbikes, like in Mwea, where they are really relying on donkeys. Now they are using motorbikes. In parts of Western Mount Elgon, people have turned to motorbikes, because motorbikes are faster, they deliver whatever you want in good time. So we have to come up with ways of making donkeys lucrative. Now we must sensitize the farmers, one, not to sell their donkeys. We must be advise them to be keen with management. We must also advise them on how to protect so that they are not stolen. Because these donkeys are kept in the homes, but we also have cows there, where people going for the cheaper option, which is the donkey. It means some of the farmers are just selling them. So we need really to talk to them. But as a government, we are writing a paper where we want to come up with a breeding project for breeding donkeys. We have engaged our veterinary officers and scientists in the State Department of Livestock, so they come up with a paper where we can have it as a project where donkeys can be reared and be given to farmers under a program called One Cow Initiative, so that we are able to sustain.
And that will beef up the numbers. So I'll put this question across to you also, in as far as striking the balance. It is a good economic pathway for the youth especially, but then again we are afraid that it will dwindle if they keep slaughtering them. Are there countries in this world that have been able to strike a balance from your experience?
Thank you, Gladys. I think we need to learn lessons from other countries. Particularly from the country where these investors are coming from. The investors in Kenya for the donkey slaughter are coming from China. And we particularly know that the interest that is there in the donkeys today is not really the meat, because much of the meat doesn't even go to China. It goes to other countries like Vietnam. So the real thing about this trend is about the skins, where they all go to China. Because the demand for skins, for donkey skins in China is very high. They use it to make some products, beauty products, cosmetics that are very valued, and they are very expensive there. So they make a lot of money from them. That's why they are looking for donkeys, not only in Kenya, it is from all African countries and other parts of the world where there are donkeys. So the real thing is about the skins, the trend in skins. And just to mention that my brother Lawrence said, donkey meat was allowed in the year, was gazetted as a food animal. Donkeys were gazetted as food animals in the year 1999. That was for the reasons that were there then, that the Turkana people needed to slaughter donkeys for consumption. But the current day or today, the reason why donkeys are being slaughtered is not because we need the meat here. It is because the skins are required in China. So that is the disparity between what is happening now and what was happening before. So the real reason why we should actually think about this business and think about striking the balance, and I'm saying we need to learn from other countries. China has tried all possible means to bring donkeys. They have not been able to. And we don't have a good technology that will help us in the planet to bring donkeys at the rate that is required to supply skins to China. Okay. So it's a difficult thing to do in the first place, and it is going to challenge many African countries because they cannot match the demand that is needed for skins in China.
Okay, now Lawrence, away from China, the Kenya-Tanzania border has been red flagged as an enabler of donkey slaughter due to the cross-border trade. How are you dealing with this as a government?
So government, when we stopped slaughtering of donkeys, okay, when we suspended actually the cross-border transportation of donkeys was stopped. In fact, most of the donkeys are now coming from Ethiopia, because in Ethiopia, the slaughtering of donkey was banned. In Tanzania, they have now opened their abattoir at Shinyanga, I think last month. So the Kenyans are now the ones selling donkeys to Tanzania now during this period that we're closed. But we also went up to Marsabit and found out that most of the donkeys that are being slaughtered in Kenya are coming from Ethiopia. And the county government of Marsabit is making a lot of money from this. They are charging 400 shillings per donkey that arrives in Kenya. They call it a landing fee, and then they are licensed, and then they are put on lorries and transported to the abattoirs. If you go to West Africa, nearly all the countries have actually banned, apart from Nigeria, that is still doing it. So, but I think as a government, the stand of the government is that this slaughtering of donkeys should stop, and that's why I mentioned earlier that we are going to appeal, because that will control. But again, we should increase vigilance at the border, so that even when we stop, if Shinyanga in Tanzania is still doing it, people will still get the donkeys from Kenya and send them to Tanzania. So we should increase vigilance on that.
Okay.
I think that, but maybe to be, although the stand of the government, and also what I feel is important is that we should stop this. But now, also to be a devil's advocate, is that we should also make rearing of donkeys more lucrative, so that people can rear them in large numbers and be able to sell and make money. Because whether we accept, we stop the slaughterhouses or not, donkeys, because we are saying they are operating areas where the roads are bad. What if the roads are improved? It means then nobody will be using the donkeys, and if they don't use the donkeys, they may be extinct. So I'm saying that we need to come up with ways of breeding more donkeys so that we are able to sell, make them more lucrative, but at controlled rate. Even if the slaughterhouses, the court decides that we continue slaughtering, then we should have an agreement with these guys who are slaughtering, so that maybe they are just slaughtered maybe 3 months in a year, so that we are able to give them time to grow, to
breed,
to increase in number.
Okay, and that's a valid point that Lawrence raises. Eston, we have all been socialized to refer to the donkey as the beast of burden. That's all we look at it as. So how can we change mindsets? Because I think that is where now we will see the behavioral change we're talking about.
Yeah, that is very possible, and it is very viable, with a lot of controls. First of all, I think the most important thing is to look at the business itself. How is it set up? Are we looking at the entire value chain of producing the donkeys, in a good environment, in a good way, welfare-friendly methods, and then slaughtering them in a friendly way. So that is possible. It's a whole value chain that can be developed. But as we stand now, it is not developed. So that's why the government is keen to say, can we now stop and think about it? And it's very viable. It can bring people to it can bring money to the people. It can create employment. But we have to set systems that help us to breed the donkeys. We have to set up systems that help us to control the population, because we don't want to lose all of them. And then we can introduce people. There are people who are very interested in doing this, but the systems are not there. So those systems must be set, regulations must be set, and I'm sorry to say that, you see, any business that is giving Kenyans money, they don't have to be introduced to it. They start right away, because Kenyans are aggressive in business. That's why you see when the Chinese ask for donkeys, people are very aggressive to look for them everywhere, including stealing them and selling them to them. So it's something that needs to be regulated in a certain way, and it becomes a good value chain for the Kenyans.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Lawrence, even as the world was marking the World Veterinary Day in April, there were calls that in the midst of this pandemic, the welfare of donkeys has been forgotten. You know, taking them to the vets, taking care of them, and you had alluded to the same before. How can this be emphasized going forward?
I'm not able to get the question.
I said, I asked that this year during
I'm not getting the...
Okay, you cannot hear me? All right, as we sort that out, perhaps I can throw this to you, Eston. How can we actually ensure that we keep the welfare of the donkeys in mind? Because during the World Veterinary Day, it said that a lot of its welfare and health has actually been forgotten.
Yeah, the welfare of donkeys has been forgotten, and maybe to give you some historical background about the welfare of donkeys in this country. KENDAT, which is one of the organizations that is working on the welfare of donkeys, started that work in the year 2001. It is now 20 years down the line. And I think before then, donkeys were really forgotten in terms of their welfare. And I can tell you that if you go down to the communities now who own donkeys, you'll see a very big difference in terms of the way donkeys are taken care of, their welfare in terms of presence of wounds, the feeding, the way they work them and all that. There is a very big impact on that. So the emphasis now would be, if we are going to continue keeping animals, not only donkeys, we really have to think about their welfare, because these are the same animals that people are feeding on. They are the same animals that are working for them. So how does the issue of welfare not feature going forward? It's not possible. We have to think about them. We have to think about the welfare of these animals, so that even when they are used for food, they are really good animals to feed people. Yeah.
And when it comes to sensitization of the same, is this done in the county levels, and people, farmers or owners, know where to get these services for their animals?
Yes, right now the program on donkey welfare that is mainly funded by Brook East Africa, an affiliate of the Brook UK, a charity in the UK, and other organizations like the Donkey Sanctuary. The coverage in terms of awareness and the support for animal welfare is very huge now in the country, because we are covering, let's say, for example, those who are doing donkey welfare, we are covering a total of 22 counties in this country, and spreading to the other countries in East Africa. We have programs in Tanzania, Uganda, Sudan, Somalia, and Ethiopia.
Okay,
Yeah.
so as I mentioned, and even as we wrap up this conversation, is that the theme for the National Donkey Day was Donkeys for Prosperity and Resilience Amidst Adversity. How can we harness this going forward?
Yeah, I think the way to harness the resilience and the handworking that the donkey gives back to us is, one is to take care of their welfare. We have done a lot of work in terms of awareness creation, and many people are aware about the welfare, and I think that should be promoted at all levels. The other thing that should be done is those organizations, those of us who are working in different places, different counties, needs to join hands with the government, because the government is a key player when it comes to animal welfare. Remember, the government is spread in all the counties, in all the places where some of the organizations may not be able to reach. But given that these organizations are supporting, complementing what the government is doing, then there is need to work together with the government. Because these animals will need, as CS has said, they will need to be vaccinated against diseases. They need to be taken care of when they are at universities, they need to be taken care of. So partnering with the government is one key thing that needs to happen in this country, because also the government will help to create awareness, it will help to support things that other organizations are not able to support, and also bringing in the private sector in it. Because once the donkeys now become a resource for the industries, then the private sector features very prominently in it. There are people who are willing to invest in certain things that help to improve the welfare, that help to improve the production of these animals. So the private sector comes in very handy.
A lot of work still to be done, even as we harness the welfare of our donkeys. Eston Murithi, CEO, Kenya Network for Dissemination of Agriculture Technologies, KENDET, and we were also joined by Lawrence Omuhaka, who is a CAS, Ministry of Livestock and Fisheries, all the way from Mombasa. Thank you, gentlemen, for giving us this, you know, scope in as far as taking care of our donkeys is concerned, and we'll be following up in as far as this case about the banning of that ruling on slaughtering and trade. Well, CAS, if you can hear us, do you have a parting shot now that we lost you earlier?
Yes. I think the most important thing that we are going to do is to appeal for the ban, and then breeding. We are, like I said, we are working on the breeding program. We want to look at it as a project with the key performance indicators, so that we see how many we are breeding per year, so that we can increase the population. And then if the court insists that the slaughtering should be on, then we have to sit with these guys who are slaughtering, the businessmen, so that we have a specific period when the slaughtering should be done, and also the numbers. And then we also want to insist that if you have a business of slaughtering donkeys, then you, as the owner of the abattoir, you should also have a herd of them. You should have a herd. You should also be able to prove that you have like 500 before you are allowed to go with the slaughtering. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. That is Lawrence Omuhaka, CAS, Ministry of Livestock and Fisheries, and thank you for being part of this conversation, and we shall follow up on some of those recommendations that you have put forth. Well, at this point, I bid you farewell, but remember, as the number of students joining institutions of higher learning keeps rising, Kenyan universities and colleges have found it difficult to meet the demand for on-campus student accommodation, giving rise to privately funded off-campus accommodation. However, with the pandemic seeing many universities shut their doors and switch to virtual learning, the question is, what is the future of purpose, or what is the future of purpose-built student and accommodation as an asset class? Well, Victor Kiprop will be steering that conversation tomorrow from 7 a.m. See you then.